Later in the evening, we address selective editing in. Tonight, is lack of abortion access causing women to drop kids out of moving cars? Later in the evening, we address selective editing in podcasts.
Well, you should watch it.
I don't want to.
And here's the latest from Michelle Obama.
My shoes become the most important thing about me.
Spoken like a true black man. Later in the evening, Kim Jong-un takes us on a tour of North Korean hot tubs. Tonight, with Kanye saying he likes Jews, did they finally fix his meds, or did they have it right the first time? In Middle America, a return to the authentic church experience.
You say you're a Christian, but you're gay.
Tonight, President Trump expresses his outrage over people willing to lie in order to get government positions.
You know, they're saying everything I want to hear, and then they get the job. They're locked in for 6 years. They get the job, and all of a sudden, let's raise rates a little bit.
Saying such a process should only be utilized on the voting public. Tonight, we talk to the UFC fighter who lost a fight with the floor. Later in the evening in Minneapolis, some questioning if law enforcement and ICE could better communicate with the public without the whistles. We go to our field reporter. I'm here on the streets of Minneapolis, and it's pretty disorienting out here. There's so many whistles, I feel like I'm messing up in football practice. Oh, it looks like the ICE people are trying to tell us something. I have done nothing wrong! To haze me? I'm not looking to join another fraternity! All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Run Your Mouth podcast. I see some people in the comments, so I'm going to assume we had sound and everything is smooth, and we are cooking. All right, let's get right into it. You know, no reason to delay or dilly-dally here. But, you know, everyone's looking for a practical solution here on what we can do with all these illegal immigrants. And I have a proposal, all right? Can we do whatever happened to the plastic bags in supermarkets? Because we all like the plastic bags. They were cheaper. They were easier to use. They worked better. And then one morning I woke up and there were no plastic bags anymore. I was stuck with brown paper bags that didn't work. And then you walked out into the parking lot, they would fall apart on you, and then it just looked like you robbed the place. And then you're coming back to your apartment. Your neighbors are looking at the fact that you went grocery shopping for nothing but Drake's cakes. It wasn't better. Everyone preferred in America with the plastic bags. And somehow they super sneaky that, where one morning you showed up to your grocery store and they were all gone. And now you were stuck with something that didn't work as well and was more expensive, but it was American. It was American brown paper bag. And I don't know, can we maybe review what they did there? Because that worked perfectly. There were no protests. They all took something we all liked and was super convenient, and then it was just gone, replaced by something that didn't work as well. And no one said a word. No one protested in the streets. All right, listen, if there's one thing I've learned from all this chaos out in Minnesota, it's liberals might be stupid, but they're not a bunch of pussies. You got to give some credit to the left here. I wish I could have some of that left juice and confidence that, you know, we didn't protest like this over COVID. Shut down the entire country on us, stripped us of our freedoms, and we didn't get out there and get pepper sprayed in the face. And so, listen, I don't know that this is the cause that everyone needs to get out in the streets over. I don't really know why liberals are that excited about illegal immigrants and keeping them in their towns. Don't think it's worth getting pepper sprayed over. But you got it. You got to respect the kahunas on these leftists. You know, and listen, I don't think that they're the best at getting out there and protesting. I think if the right, you know, had to square off against the left, they got more guns and they're better with their guns. But you got to give some credit to these people for not just taking it. At this point, you know what I'm thinking? Cancel the NFL playoffs and let's just watch more of this train wreck. Everyone turns into NASCAR for a good car crash, and we've just turned all of Minnesota into one live car crash. I say more ICE efforts. Let's double down. Let's cancel the Super Bowl, and let's film the streets of Minnesota. Let's see who can let's have the pepper spray Olympics. Let's see who can handle the most pepper spray in their face, or who can get tased and continue to walk at a cop. Think about all the events that we could turn this into. Now, listen, in the search for more practical solutions of what we could possibly do to ramp down the tensions, to possibly see more deportations in a more civil fashion, maybe, here's a couple ideas, maybe just less operations on the weekends. I assume some of these people, they just dress up like trans furries on the weekends. I feel like some of these protesters must have jobs. If instead of having these big weekend square-offs, you guys just reduced all your activities for, middle of the week, maybe even middle of the night. I mean, if you guys are supposedly just looking for specific criminals that you know about, can't you do middle of the night operations? Nights and, or you go nights and weekdays? I don't know. I'm just wondering, is there a time that this could be conducted that there would be less people available to show up and protest? Or can you guys just go with like some Looney Tunes tricks? Like, why don't you guys just make corporations and let people fill out job applications and then just arrest them when they're not legal U.S. citizens? Isn't there a way you just pretend like you're a meat packing facility or that you're a farm place and, you're taking job applicants. And then when the illegal immigrants show up, you just round them up. Isn't there's got to be some loony tricks we could be pulling. There's got, didn't you guys see, I'm editing that thought. Now, there is something somewhat humorous to me that every single thing that goes on in our country, people go, well, this is just a distraction. He declared Greenland, that we're taking Greenland so that, he could distract everyone from Iran, talked about Iran to distract everybody, Venezuela to distract everyone from Epstein. And if every single action that Donald Trump takes is a distraction from the other action, then what good thing is he doing? And if we're going to just be doing things to distract us from the other thing that he's doing, can he do Donald Trump National Ice Cream Day? You've all worked in failing offices where every once in a while they bring in good snacks and you sit there and you go, I'm pretty sure this company's going under, and I still hate our boss for not taking any of my recommendations and instead going with all of his ideas that are leading this company to fail. But this ice cream is nice. I'm just saying, if we're just going for distractions, let's have pleasant distractions and maybe a National Ice Cream Day where me as a lactose intolerant, I wouldn't be able to participate in National Ice Cream Day. But listen, as much as I hate socialism and I'll yell about free goods going to the public, if Donald Trump wants to do a Cool the Tensions National Ice Cream Day across the country, but Mexicans can't have any and aren't invited to the party, I would support that effort. Episode brought to you by YoKratom.com, home of the $6 kilo, and the only place possible to get an entire kilo of Kratom for just $60. And I'll take comments at the end of the section because we're going to do some more coverage of what's going on out in Minnesota. But at the end of the episode, please subscribe and support. If you've never liked the channel, write a review, send it to a friend, give it a favorable review on iTunes. And if you want to support the show for all $5 a month, RobBernsteinComedy.com. And we'll be doing some paywalled stuff at the end. So here's the latest from the Donald Trump administration, because obviously it's been chaos out in the streets. Even the hardliners of the administration are starting to walk back, that the endorsement of the killings of that one individual who was out there, which we'll get into in a second. But the new plan is they're going to be releasing the Homan, everybody. For anyone that was concerned about what was going on out there, don't worry, it's like the Kraken. Send in the Homan! And there he is. He's going to show up and I guess cool all the tensions. He was good at doing deportations under Obama. And so they're recalling Trenchcoat Guy, and they're sending in the Homan so that I guess hopefully he will have a more tactful approach out in Minnesota. Now, if some of you are sitting on the sidelines and you're getting excited by what's going on out there and you're thinking, you know what, maybe I would like to get out there and protest. This looks like a good time. I think I can handle getting showered in pepper spray to my face. I think I can do a better job of stopping cars and then getting away. I've put together a brief presentation on some of the do's and don'ts of protesting. So first is, I'm going to say this is good protesting by this lady here. You got to respect her garb. She's got a long coat. She's warm. She's got gloves. She's got a hat on. And then look at this duck walk. She's having a good time. She's got like a Conor McGregor, Daffy Duck walk going. She's causing chaos. She's yelling thing at the ICE agents. But you know what else? She's got distance. She's safely away from these individuals. She's got enough room to demonstrate her own walk and display her aura. She's got a megaphone so that she can be heard. She's got garb that is lightly colored to let you know that she's not threatening. And most importantly, she's having fun. She's out there having a good time. So for those of you trying to figure out how to protest, get a megaphone so that no one can understand you, but you're obnoxiously loud. Put on comfortable clothes. Find yourself a safe space with distance between you and the ICE officers, and have a good time. Now, here's some of the don'ts of protesting. And one is don't take the opportunity of the chaos in the background to try and film a cool rap video where you get to do a cool walk-off like you just defeated all the enemies. And that's going to be a don't of protesting. Don't think, oh, this is my opportunity to film an action movie because look at all this chaos going on in back of me. I've got free visual effects here. And so here's a don't of protesting. And particularly, don't try and run away if you can't run. This guy's got decent legs for his size. Should have been an NFL player. But they almost should have just let him continue running and slow down just to see how far. Maybe he could have completed a whole marathon, or he could have seen how many steps he was away of tripping of his own accord. That's the way I would have played it. I would have told all the ICE, you know what? Let's see how far this can guy. Let's see how far he can go. But here he is. I don't know what happened before this, but this guy decided to put up his hands in victory and do a slow, cool walk-off. And the ICE agents were like, nah, you're not going to play that one on us. He was so happy there for a moment. It's like somebody just signed over the rights to a pie factory for him. You don't. Once that guy's down, he's not coming back up.
That's my husband!
My name is Matthew James!
All right, and then here's just the last don't of protesting is, listen, sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the moment, not realize what's going on around you. And if ICE throws items or objects at you, including tear gas or flash grenade canisters, friendly warning, they should probably play this in schools. Remember, stop, drop, and roll. They need some sort of a catchy song for don't pick up the flash grenade that was just thrown at you.
Liz found out the hard way when she decided to pick up a flashbang grenade and throw it back at ICE agents. Check it out.
Oh my God.
By the way, that's the worst. That's a cartoonish voice for something horrific happen. Oh my God. Are you okay? Did someone just knock off all your fingers? Hey, maybe you shouldn't have picked that up.
When she decided to pick up a flashbang grenade and throw it back at ICE agents. Check it out.
Oh my God.
Did you hurt your hand? Do you want me to kiss it? I can kiss your hand. All right, so there you go. You know, if you're going to get out there and protest, it's important to learn from the people that are out there currently engaging it and getting some of the information about what you should and shouldn't do while you're out there. All right, let's take a couple comments and then we can move on to a breakdown of some of the numbers being thrown out there in terms of who ICE is actually targeting. All right, NOSA something. I know that the hotbird of Kime, aka Minnesota, Trump is obviously afraid the cabal in Latin America is plotting against him. Not sure about that. At Shore Thea Taylor, they have Planeteer to help them, and they seem not to be using it. BT Bams, I just found out that in 1996 they made a 4TV movie called The Siege at Ruby Ridge starring Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid's always fun. Slav, if you ain't bleeding, are you really protesting? Well, you know, I think Duck Walk Lady was doing it better than the others. Sydney, why do you have to go live as my plane is taking off? Well, enjoy your travels. I hope you're going somewhere fun. It's warm and a nice time. And the show will just be sitting here for when you land. And then you can enjoy the entire show. Runaway Slav, the Tiananmen Square protests were on American Color Revolution in China. All right, let's move on. Anyways, okay. The administration has been going with this line of that they're just going after the worst of the worst, which I don't even know why they have to go with that. You know, if you guys want to deport people, we've said there should be an effort to deport people that came into this country. We need a correction for what took place over the Biden administration. Listen, I'm not totally on board with that. I think there's probably a need for some immigrant labor in this country. I don't buy into all the tariff talk and all the American job talks, but as I said, we can't just have people flooding over the border. And if another Democratic administration comes in and they just want to welcome people into the country, try and get as many people into the country as possible, we can't have that. And so we do need some degree of correction here. All right? There needs to be a level of deportation, and probably makes sense to go after all the criminals first. Those are probably the people you most want out of the country. But they don't really have to just go after the criminals. But that's what they're trying to tell us, is that they're just in these areas and they're targeting criminals. And here you have crazy people getting in the way of them just trying to round up criminals that shouldn't even be living in this area, and these people wouldn't want to have in the area. How dumb are these individuals that they're going to get out and get pepper sprayed in the face as they try and protect pedophiles, murderers, and other criminals who are living in their communities that even these people don't want in their communities? That's the line that they're trying to go with, is we're just here arresting the worst of the worst. And so there was a stat making the rounds last week that 70% of those in ICE detention had no criminal records, which would seem to indicate that they're not actually just going after the worst of the worst. Now, a friend of mine pointed out that the reason why so many people that have been rounded up are probably not actually criminals is because if they go to a job site looking for a specific criminal, and then, you know, let's say there's 1,000 other employees there who happen to be illegal immigrants that aren't criminals, well, once they're there, they're going to take that guy too. And I got two issues with this. One is, I think partly why Obama was so successful was they just said, let's not tie up the resources on those other people at this factory. And so if you're just going for the worst of the worst, even if you happen on to find other illegal immigrants when you're looking for one illegal immigrant, I don't know that that's the most efficient way if you're specifically just trying to get the worst of the worst out of the country. Secondly, you've now created a mechanism where you can always just be fishing. So can you go to all of Minnesota, for example, and say, hey, I'm looking for this one guy. And since you're looking for this one guy, you can now ask any random person for their ID if they are of a certain skin color, because you're actually just looking for this one guy. And this other person just happens to be on a street corner unrelated to the person that you're looking for. And firstly, just people claiming they're only going for the worst of the worst. At least this fact and figure would suggest otherwise. And maybe it's not the most accurate stat. Listen, this is the breakdown over the last couple days. New information I'm sure will come out. And on top of that, it doesn't seem to me like the crime stats are, it seems like once you start digging into this stuff, it's all COVID with how are they actually keeping and detailing this information, or on the back end. Because I remember under Biden, there were a lot of posts of people being arrested where they mischaracterized their nationality, which then makes it easy to go, oh, look, minorities, they actually cause less crimes. Well, if you don't categorize them as minorities or illegal immigrants when you're registering the crime, then, yeah, the statistics are obviously going to state that. But there also seemed to be some evidence of the fact that they were just out there harassing random individuals, that they were not, in fact, just on street corners looking for ex-criminal, but just kind of walking around and, picking up whoever or harassing whoever, and more of just being in the area with a show of force. So I'm just saying, for people that are trying to argue, hey, these people are idiots, they're just there for the worst of the worst. Firstly, the readily available statistic is not that the administration is at least rounding up a lot of the worst, that most of the people that they're rounding up don't actually have criminal records. And then you've got, well, maybe that's who they're intending to, but they're taking a lot of other people. But here are some clips that would seem to indicate more of just being out there either fishing or, you know, just kind of drumming up the chaos. Maybe because they specifically wanted to go to areas with chaos so that they could walk back the immigration policy completely and not deport anybody and go, look, we tried. So here was the incident of a guy who was snagged in a Walmart. I think the suspicion of him not being a U.S. citizen, I guess, was probably his skin color. He doesn't look like the most legal of all citizens. But here they are, snagging people while they're working.
You guys are all on video.
Jonathan Aguilar Garcia. I'm literally a U.S. citizen.
Give us a
I'm
phone
literally a
number.
U.S. citizen. Get the fuck out.
You should work on, if you are a U.S. citizen, you should work on your pronunciation to say it more American. But
Number we'll call.
supposedly that guy was actually a citizen.
Call you. And your first name's Christian, right? We'll call them.
All right. And then you had this guy who was pulled out of his shower and then was later returned
My
home.
name is Charlie Scott Tao. I'm 56 years now. So the point they got to me and my daughter-in-law, and then they told me to come out here without my clothes on. I was short only, and then they just handcuffed me right there. And then when they took me out there, my grandson was picking on the window.
So your grandson watched everything?
Yeah, my grandson watched everything.
He actually always watches me shower. And now this lady didn't actually end up getting arrested, but they certainly tried to exert as much authority as possible. And listen, these might just be scattered videos, or it might be an indication that they aren't just in these areas looking for the worst and select criminals, and are in fact just harassing random people and doing ID checks. So this would be an example of an ID check. They walk it about as far as they can and then let her go, but it would seem to indicate that they are just doing random fishing.
Do you have an ID on you, ma'am? I don't need an ID to walk around in my city. This is my
Okay,
city.
do you have
This is
some
my
IDs
home.
then, please?
I don't need an
If
ID.
not, we're going to put you in the vehicle and we're going to ID you.
You can ID me.
Huh?
I'm not going to take out. You take out your ID.
You don't have an ID?
I'm not going to take out an ID.
Hey man, it's
I am
gonna
U.S.
happen either
citizen.
way.
I am U.S. citizen.
All right, can we see an ID?
That guy looks like Shane Gillis is out there.
I am U.S. citizen. I don't need to carry around an ID in my home.
Well,
This is
where
my
were you,
home.
Where were you born?
This is my home.
Where were you born,
Minneapolis is my home.
ma'am? That's not.
This
That's.
is-
We're
this-
doing an immigration check. We're doing a
This is-
citizen
this
check.
is- this is
and we're
where-
asking you where you were born.
This is where I belong. This is my home.
Ma'am, you
and
can
I-
belong here, but where were you
And
born?
I am not going to give you an ID.
Then we're going to put you in the vehicle until
I
we can
belong.
ID you.
I belong here. I should be walking around here free. I shouldn't be afraid in my life at this point.
Ma'am, do you have an
You
ID
making
to
me
give
a
us?
skirt? No.
Yes, you're correct.
You making me a scare. You making me a
Do you have
panic.
an ID?
This is my home.
Ma'am, where were you born?
I am U.S. citizen. I am U.S. citizen. And I don't think so you have a right to picture me while I am in my home and walking around in my home. This is not acceptable. You guys, you're terrorizing people,
Ma'am,
and it's not
where were
acceptable.
you born?
It doesn't matter where I was born. I belong here. I am U.S. citizen. What else can I say? I am citizen. This is my home.
You realize that if you lie that you're a
Minneapolis-
U.S. citizen,
Minneapolis is my home.
then you can get
Minneapolis is
federal
my
charges.
home. I belong here. I'm sorry. I belong here. I'm not going to take out an ID.
In that case, they do walk off. All right, let's take a look at some of the other crime data that would seem to suggest that they're not just in the area going after the worst of the worst. This was from Google Gemini. Criminal records. While some report suggests over 1,500 to 2,500 arrests, a criminal breakdown of a 2,500 person subset indicated that about let's just go with 10%, were identified by ICE as having serious criminal convictions or gang affiliations, including homicide, sexual assault, and drug trafficking. And then this was from David Stockman. I didn't want to put too much of this in here because it is paywalled content, and I am a subscriber to David Stockman. But he put forward a really interesting article, and he was basically getting into the overall crime stats in Minnesota and the show of force that exists there, and that there actually aren't even that many crimes by illegal aliens in the area to possibly warrant the amount of feds that have just been sent in. And so I'm just going to read this one part. Nevertheless, since the illegal alien population is 3% of the Minneapolis population of 429,000, it is pretty well proven and accepted that the illegal alien population actually commits violent crimes at a lower rate than the native population. As I said, I'm not totally sure that that's true, but yet with the crime rates generally speaking in the area and that it's only 3% of the population, I still think he has a fair point here. Let's nonetheless assign a 3% pro-stat rate share of the city's 2025 violent crimes to the illegal alien population. What we get, of course, is still a staggeringly insane level of overkill. 2.3 homicides by legal aliens, or 756 fed cops per homicide. 149 violent criminals by illegal aliens, or 12 fed cops per violent crime. I thought it was an interesting look at the general crime in the area. All right. Now, just one last thing to consider in terms of that they are just there trying to go after the worst of the worst, and you've got these dumbasses who are interrupting them from just taking out the worst of the worst. So there was also a storyline, and I believe that this is a local liberal publication. So, take the stats with a grain of salt, take the liberal reporting with a grain of salt. But I did see articles basically stating that a lot of who's made it onto the ICE list of look at the worst of the worst that we rounded up was actually people that was just handed to them by local law enforcement. And so this effort of being on the streets and saying we're just looking for these specific individuals, and then, oh, look at all these horrible people that we got off the streets. Not all of those horrible people were actually rounded up even in these exercises. So if you're trying to just go look at how good this job is we're doing and look at all these horrible people that we got out of here, apparently some of those horrible people were literally just handed to them by local law enforcement. So let's read this. This is from NPR News. I'm not familiar with them. Examined one of the lists shared by DHS officials on Monday, January 12th, and found that most of the people on the list had been immediately transferred to ICE custody at the end of time served in Minnesota prisons. All those transfers happened before ICE began its surge of operations in Minnesota on December 1st, 2025, with some even happening years before. DHS has also accused Minnesota prisons of not cooperating with immigration enforcement, but the department said it coordinated with ICE on the release of 84 prisoners last year, several of whom have shown up on the DHS worst of the worst lists. Now, this was from Fox 9. Further showing that there is misreporting in the data. DHS appears to mix up criminal records for worst of the worst. Dig deeper. DHS also appeared to mix up criminal records for some of their worst of the worst offenders. For example, the agency says Gilbert Galero Reyes was detained because of a criminal history that includes driving while under the influence and violating a court order. In state court records, I need to take a... That was too much Zyn in my mouth a second ago, and I'm about 3 seconds away from Zyn hiccups. We'll see if they come on. In state court records, the only offense under the name are minor traffic violations and a guilty plea giving false information to a peace officer. I don't know who a peace officer is, but okay. He served 3 days in Stearns County Jail in 2020 and has not served time in Minnesota since, according to court records. The charges cited by DHS belong to an older man with a similar name. They seem to have serious record problems, and frankly, they should concern all of us, said Paul Schnell, commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Corrections. DHS has made similar misleading or outright false claims about Minnesota prisons. And then this was from a different article, but here are some names that were picked up by ICE agents from state prisons in 2025 and then made it onto the ICE list of worst of the worst that they were saying. It's because of our efforts that these people were rounded up. All right, and now this is the trench coat guy trying to defend the shooting that took place. He's already been recalled as they're sending in the Homan. But here we go. Let's give this a quick listen.
Was there
and then we'll take some comments.
In the first place? Was he simply walking by and just happened to walk into a law enforcement situation and try to direct traffic and stand in the middle of the road and then assault, delay, and obstruct law enforcement? Or was he there for a reason? Did he fall victim to that violent and heated rhetoric by a Mayor Fry, a Governor Waltz? Look, Dana, they're...
So in other words, you don't know when you killed him. Pretty good reason why you don't do investigations after the fact. Well, we're going to do the investigation. Well, it sounds like you killed a guy that you shouldn't have killed. And whenever you're looking for clarifications on the administration, on what took place, how the president feels, how the entity of the White House would like to frame this situation, you can go to Caroline Levitt, who always comes through with some real clarity. Let's roll the clip and comment.
Earlier, you were just defending ICE agents generally, and earlier on, Secretary Noem spoke to the media, and she said, among other things, that they are doing everything correctly. 32 people died in ICE custody last year. 170 U.S. citizens were detained by ICE, and Renee Good was shot in the head and killed by an ICE agent. How does that equate to them doing everything correctly?
Why was Renee Good unfortunately and tragically killed?
Are you asking me my opinion? Because an ICE agent acted recklessly and killed her unjustifiably.
Oh, okay. So you're a biased reporter with a left-wing opinion.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah, because you're a left-wing hack. You're not a reporter. You're posing in this room as a journalist, and it's so clear by the premise of your question. And you and the people in the media who have such biases but fake like you're a journalist, you shouldn't even be sitting in that seat. But you're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised and your answer proves your bias. You should be reporting on the facts. You should be reporting on the cases. Do you have the numbers of how many American citizens were killed at the hands of illegal aliens who ICE is trying to remove from this country? I bet you don't. I bet you didn't even read up on those stories. I bet you never even read about Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungray or all of the innocent Americans who were killed at the hands of illegal aliens in this country. And the brave men and women of ICE are doing everything in their power to remove those heinous individuals and make our communities safer. And shame on people like you in the media who have a crooked view and have a biased view and pretend like you're a real honest journalist. Kelly.
I like it how they have an official clapbacker in the White House. His first question, reasonable question. She pivots it to another question and goes, "Oh shit, you ain't getting laid. Oh, look at this fucking lefty." I'm turning her black, but you get the point. It's just the official White House clapback of pivot to something else, don't answer the question, and then call the guy a Scottish bastard. Here, let's watch another one.
Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. To follow on Gabe's question, Secretary Noem said Alex Preddy committed an act of domestic terrorism. Stephen Miller labeled Preddy a domestic terrorist. Does the president agree with them?
Look.
Well, firstly, let's just go with that. I've spoken out against the titles of using domestic terrorism because who gets to decide what's domestic terrorism? And then does that then mean that you're not afforded due process? I don't like these prosecute crimes based on the crime that was committed. Same problem with hate crimes. You're just escalating things. Just if someone did something that was unlawful, prosecute them for what they did that was unlawful. When you start throwing in these other labels and titles, it becomes a mechanism to kind of just strip people of their freedoms and who gets to define the terms of what constitutes someone being a domestic terrorist. And in this case, without knowing that this guy, it might turn out that he was the bin Laden of Antifa in the area, and he was the chief organizer. And yeah, if you prove all that, I guess he got a little bit more of a case. But until you prove it, what basis do you have that this to state that this guy was a domestic terrorist? On this one, she doesn't clap back. She just kind of walks back the comments from the other people and says that that's not actually speaking for Trump. But let's play the whole clip.
As I've said, I have not heard the president characterize Mr. Preddy in that way. However, I have heard the president say he wants to let the facts in the investigation lead itself.
Was he alarmed to hear his top officials referring to him in that way, rushing to that judgment?
Danny, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. On Stephen Miller's comments, will Stephen Miller be apologising to the family of Alex Pretty for calling him, quotes, an assassin who tried to murder federal agents, despite the fact that, as you say, this is still under investigation?
Look, again, this incident remains under investigation, and nobody here at the White House, including the President of the United States, wants to see Americans hurt.
And here you have Stephen Miller, at least according to the New York Post, I guess, walking back that the man was a domestic terrorist, as, you know, I guess Donald Trump sold all these people out that went out there and lied through their teeth and tried to pretend like this was good, honest police work that got that man killed. But here you have Stephen Miller admits border agents who killed Alex Preddy may not have been following protocol. And I guess for all of you guys out there who immediately hopped on this and defended what was going on, are you guys now upset at Stephen Miller? Are you guys upset at Donald Trump for not more getting the back of everyone and saying, hey, we got to see, investigate what happened? I mean, you guys must be outraged with Donald Trump that he's walking back and letting Antifa win. I mean, all of it. Are you guys out there? Are you criticizing the administration now? Now, this one was deliciously stupid, and I think it's the last article on this topic, and then we'll take some comments. But this was just deliciously stupid. All right, so this was from the New York Post. Alex Preddy was known to feds. Now, let's just take that one line off the bat. When you hear the line, Alex Preddy was known to feds, what does that imply? What does that imply to you? I read it, and the implication is like, oh, I guess this guy was a known problem, or he was some sort of a known agitator, or he was a known member of Antifa, or he was a known risk. It sounds to me like, all right, this guy was, when you're telling me that he was known to the feds, it almost indicates to me that, like, they knew that this guy was actually a dangerous individual, and so when they saw him, they took quicker action because they knew that he was specifically there, I guess, to maybe known as in you saw him post on Facebook that he was carrying a gun and was going to kill someone that day. It seems to imply that you knew that this guy was actually a dangerous asset. But the claim is vague, and so that's all they're saying. Alex Preddy was known to feds. Seems to imply that they knew that he was going to be a problem and maybe that they were justified in killing him, but it's a little bit vague. Let's continue. And had rib broken in anti-ICE protest a week before he was killed by Border Patrol. Also, now that you find out that he had his rib broken, you're like, oh, I guess this guy showed up and he created problems before, or he must have attacked a cop. He must have attacked a cop in a previous engagement and was so violent that they had to break his ribs. All right, so you've got some implications here that would seem to imply, oh, look, maybe this guy was actually a bad guy. Maybe he was actually the Bin Laden of Antifa, and he's the real ringleader. So let's continue reading this. Alex Preddy was known to the feds and suffered a broken rib in a violent confrontation with agents a week before Border Patrol officers killed him in Minneapolis, according to a report. Once again, violent confrontation. Sounds like maybe this guy had been violent. That seems to be the implication. Preddy, an ICU nurse, told a pal he saw ICE agents chasing what he described as a family on foot and stopped his car during the early incident around a week before he was shot. ICE on Saturday CNN reported. He was pulled over in his car and began shouting and blowing a whistle, at which point he was taken by 5 agents, the sources said. Preddy claimed that one of the agents had left him with a broken rib after leaning on his back, the friend told CNN. So now we don't have video of this other incident. We have video of the incident of where he was shot, and we know what they tried to claim in that incident. So without video of this other incident, I guess maybe he was trying to disrupt the efforts, or maybe he was just in the car with a whistle, but he was known to ICE because ICE had previously beat the shit out of him, or he was known to local law enforcement. He had a previous violent interaction when the police were violent towards him because he was blowing a whistle in an area he wasn't supposed to be blowing a whistle, and they beat the shit out of him. So they knew about the guy because they beat the shit out of him. Now, is that proof of the fact that that guy... Now, this guy's an idiot. Like I said, they're not pussies, but they're idiots. If you previously had your ribs broken by ICE because you went out protesting, maybe this isn't worth protesting. But this isn't exactly an implication of the fact that this man is a violent individual if there was a previous interaction in which he got the shit kicked out of him. But now, here comes the Uno Reverso card on Super Stupid. So you've got article trying to imply persons previously been involved in a violent interaction was known, and it sounds like they're trying to portray a justification for what happened and that this guy was like a known risk. But then if you continue to read in the article, this is at the bottom, Although Preddy's name was known to federal agents, according to this source, it isn't known whether the information had been shared via the intake form. It also isn't clear whether Preddy recognized or was recognized by federal agents he confronted in Minneapolis on Saturday. So, all right, I guess you got a vague justification that perhaps this guy was known by ICE. Now, what was he known for? A previous interaction where they beat the shit out of him, but we don't have video of it, and there aren't really claims that he was doing something wrong. He was in a car whistling, and they pulled him out and beat him up. Now, could it be that he blocked an officer, and he should have been pulled out of his car? Could be. Article's not even claiming that, and we don't know what the incident is. But now, all right, just in the layers of stupidity, you've got guy was known. He was known for being beat up. Supposed justification, maybe. It's loose. They're not saying, but it seems like they're trying to portray a justification and then, oh, but this might even be irrelevant because we don't know if the people who actually shot and killed him even knew about the previous experience. And so when we say known, we don't mean known by the people who took action against him. And maybe this is wrong of me to do, but Mr. Hinky over here, when you sent me this article and you said, well, did you read the article? And first, I just feel like if you're going to well me, you better have some good information. I was sitting here excited. I'd even said on yesterday's Part of the Problem, who knows, maybe we'll find out that this guy was actually a really bad dude. Maybe we'll find out that he was the guy running these signal chats and coordinating efforts against police and enforcement in the area. And you well me. And I'm like, oh, shit. Is there actually some interesting background information about this person? And then, of course, it's always this is every interaction. It's I was just saying you should be aware of the article. I wasn't saying that this was debunking what you guys had otherwise said. It's every interaction with every single person when they want to object to you. Oh, here's go do your own homework on this thing that I'm going to try and portray as if you're wrong. And then you dig in. You're like, well, what was did we read a different article here? All right, and then last thing on this, and then we're probably going to go to the paywall. But I had said, go for the low-hanging fruit first, deport a lot of people, and maybe start with the conservative areas where the police are more on your side. And like I said, you can take all the stats from today with a grain of salt because it's just this week's information, and I don't know that all the crime stats, I'm not used to looking at crime stats. I don't know that they're all valid or if all of the information is wonky, kind of like COVID of, someone's dying with the flu and you're calling it a COVID death, or unknown vaccine status is considered unvaccinated, and all the screwy stuff that they did with that data. But this was from Kevin Bass, and it was basically 63% of all violent confrontations with ICE happen in these 9 counties. And so maybe just go to all the other counties first and round up all of the other illegal aliens. And then once you're done with all of that, you can go to the areas where, you can get the hard ones where people are going to show up and protest. But, I'm just saying, I think that there's other low-hanging fruit out there that showing up to the areas that you're going to be most protested for when you haven't done wide-scale immigration, deportations, and provoke a fight by not being that strategic, seemingly, with who you're trying to round up, and just walking around and harassing people who are actually legal citizens in the area, seeming to pick a fight, you got to wonder why. And I had one friend, and his conspiracy was that Donald Trump doesn't want to actually engage in deportations, and so he purposely did these areas first so that you could say, look, you guys don't have the stones for it. All right, let's take a couple comments. And then, it's important. We're going to play this last video because when you get annoyed with Donald Trump and what the Republicans are doing, it's always good to have a reminder of that the Democrats are stupid and actually worse and dumber. And so, it's important just to remind yourselves of that because the Republicans are more in focus, and sometimes we forget about liberal stupidity. And so it's important to end out episodes with a reminder that the Democrats are, in fact, actually dumber. All right, let's take a couple comments, then we'll play this last video. But before we do, let's thank another sponsor, Sheath.com. Guys, if you haven't stepped up your game to Sheath, you're you know what you are? You're disrespecting your own testicles. God gave you beautiful testicles. Hopefully you got big balls and, you know, they're there and they're taking up space between your legs. And you're disrespecting them by making them share real estate with your fat thighs. You're disrespecting them by not putting them into their own little protective pouch where all the sweat's absorbed. They'll stay fresh, and you don't have to worry about ball sweat getting all over in the other locations. These are not supposed to be neighbors. These are like illegal immigrants taking up territory in other areas. You don't want these things mixing together. You want your balls separate from your fat thighs. And the way to do that is by going to sheath.com. You get yourself the most comfortable underwear that's ever graced the balls of man with nice cooling wick fabrics. Keeps everything calm, safe, and protected so you don't have chaos in the region. You go to sheath.com, use promo code RYM. You get yourself 20% off the greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. All right, Nicholas Linder. I don't speak for them, but I read it as an appeal to the common sense crowd that thinks most all that they're on the front lines of these protests are lacking in common sense. Okay, fair enough. This is also from Nicole, who's really dominating the chat right now. Yeah, but we aren't running that mission before you jump down my throat if defending both sides. Not sure. Eldo something. Do they make micro sheaths? Well, you know what you can buy the women's panties. They make great women's panties, and they make them in small sizes, and maybe you can shove everything in there, and it'll be a little bit more like you're turning sheaths into like a tighty-whitey experience. But I think they even have thongs, so you can show off your nice tight buns. Maybe you got tight buns to go with your small piece. So the answer is I don't think that they are catering to the micro community. But you are welcome to wear their women's lingerie and, you know, maybe don't show them off in the locker room. Or maybe you'll create a new wave of supposedly heterosexual men who are big fans of sheaths. All right. Here's the last video for today. Then we're going to go to the paywall, robbernsteincomedy.com. We'll start in 5 minutes for our Conspiracy Corner, which is going to include coverage of whether or not Ilhan Omar fabricated getting squirted on, and also if the Antifa guy calling for violence is maybe a Fed, and we'll start that 5 minutes after the show. But to close out today, here is Josh Shapiro talking about Biden's infrastructure bill. Remember, it was, I think, part of the Reduction Inflation Act, or maybe I'm mixing up the liberal stupidity that we lived through under Biden. But here we've got Josh Shapiro talking about the impact of the spending of the infrastructure bill, which was supposed to bring broadband to people living in rural areas. Let's roll a clip.
The Biden-Harris administration didn't provide those specific, tangible things that people could see or feel. I'll give you a very specific, concrete example. One of the biggest things holding back our rural communities is a lack of high-speed, affordable internet.
Which I really don't think is something that government needs to provide. I mean, you just talk about the degrees of socialism, of demanding free healthcare, free schooling, and then you get down the list all the way to I need to be able to watch porn and Netflix at home with high definition. I don't really think that that should be a government initiative. And I remember at the time people criticizing the cost and the implementation. It probably just pay for Starlink for these people versus the cost of having to run wire to remote areas to just cater to random individuals living on their farms or whatnots. Maybe this was a plan to try and bring internet to the Amish. You didn't even want it. But let's continue. And I think the audio suspiciously cuts out while he's shaming Biden here.
Some people call that broadband. I've got 246,000 homes and businesses without it. I was incredibly proud of President Biden when they got that infrastructure bill passed to provide the billions of dollars that were needed to plug everybody in, connect everybody in.
There's always excitement when they pass the bill for free money. And then there's the actual implementation part because you sold people, hey, we're going to be really good at getting you guys this free stuff. And that's always exciting because that's what they do is sell you on, hey, let us have all the resources and then we'll be better at distributing it. But it's the distributing part that they don't actually follow through on. Here we go.
In Pennsylvania. And do you know how many people, Scott, this many years later, have been connected to high-speed affordable internet thanks to President Biden's law in Pennsylvania? Zero, because the dollars were never driven out.
There you go. Democratic governor letting you know the money didn't actually have its intended effect. All right, that is our episode for today. Thank you for hanging out. We will be back probably over the weekend for another episode. In the meantime, I'm going to go take a fresh little piss break, and we'll be back. Live stream. It's going to be a short one, but paywalled. RobBernsteinComedy.com. Support the show. It's all